Happy Monday, students. So today we are going to talk about your two tasks for the week. By now, you should have all 5 sources found and summarized. So I really want to kind of circle back to a couple of things. One thing that I want to remind you about is the purpose of the literature review paper. It's really, really important for you to keep that front and center because it's not a kind of a paper that a lot of you have written before. You're used to doing research papers that are problem-solving papers, and you are not solving a problem in this paper. What you're doing is a retrospective review of published studies, because all of your sources must be scholarly sources, scholarly articles, papers published on research studies. So you are doing a retrospective review, a synthesis, where you take that material that you looked at on your research question and you evaluated how that research that was conducted was similar to one another and how the studies were different from one another. Really, in effect, that's what you're doing, is you're looking to see what kinds of goals and research the different studies that you found on your research question had. What were the hypotheses? What kind of methodology? What were their findings? What were the groups they were studying? So you are not answering questions. You aren't doing research to solve this question, the problem of this question. You are doing this research to become familiar with what's already been done. And then you're going to put it in to some kind of order and present it as a paper. So it's a report. All right, so by now you should have your 5 sources found with your APA citation and those sources summarized. If you remember, on Friday I gave you kind of a step-by-step guide on how to do a summary very specifically for this kind of paper. What kinds of things you should be looking for in these articles, because all the articles will be set up fairly similarly. And you, ideally, you're going to ask these questions right here, these key components. What was the author trying to discover? What kind of methodology? What was their subject focus? What were their key findings? And what were their conclusions? Then finally, what trends, what gaps, research gaps, what was missing, what did they say needed more work, anything like that. So, by now, you'll have that done. And if you don't have your summaries as maybe as thorough as you like them, this is your opportunity to sort of redo that, because the big assignment that's due this week is your annotated bibliography. So I'll talk about that first, and then I'll come back to the synthesis matrix. So just like you had an annotated bibliography with your literary analysis paper, you need to do an annotated bibliography for this paper. This annotated bibliography will look a little bit differently in that you don't have it separated out in primary and secondary sources. All of your sources are secondary sources in this case. There is no primary source. The primary source for these science articles and these social science articles is the actual data itself, which you aren't looking at. You're looking at their studies. They're reporting on their data. Okay, so if you open up that assignment sheet, it has, let me pull it over. Okay. So if we open up and we look at this assignment sheet, so you're going to include all your 5 sources. Again, APA documentation. Each source, it should be organized alphabetically with the APA citation, and then a 5 to 7 sentence summary, and then a 3 to 4 sentence discussion on its relevance. Okay, why is it appropriate for your paper? Okay. This assignment sheet has the rubric and how I'm going to grade your annotated bibliography. So you want to look that over. The other thing I have here is the sample. This is what yours should look like. This is your guidelines. You want it to look just like this. So at the top, so your note, you've got only your page number, not your last name. Annotated bibliography centered. You notice it's double spaced all the way throughout, times Roman 12. Then, just like in your first annotated bibliography, you had your thesis statement. In this case, you will include your research question. What are scientists currently studying about? And then your topic. Okay. You note your annotated bibliography uses hanging indent, and your citations will be alphabetized. So you'll include your APA citation, and then your summary, and then your relevance section. And you note these are aligned with the hanging indent. Okay? Same thing all the way through. You'll have 5 of them. Your APA citation, your summary aligned with your hanging indent, and then your relevance. So you'll continue on and do all 5. So that's a pretty simple, if you've done a good job with your research, your source log that was due last night, then you should have a fairly easy time with this annotated bibliography, which is due Sunday, the 30th of March. Now this is worth 5% of your total grade, so you want to get it done. Now, we'll circle back to the synthesis matrix. This synthesis matrix table is your first attempt at synthesizing your articles. In other words, how is the research that you've read and summarized similar to one another, and how is it different? So in order to begin to understand that, you're going to start working on this table that allows you to start to organize your thoughts according to themes and concepts or methodologies that you start to notice. All right, so you'll want to read this lesson on understanding the synthesis matrix. When you click over to Module 2, in fact, I will include it at your announcement, just so you know, FYI. Okay, so I just actually attached your synthesis matrix table to the announcement. So let me go ahead and open that for you. Let me go ahead and get it opened up so we can talk about it. Okay, so the first page gives you the purpose. It's a tool. This is just a tool to help you start to organize and identify patterns in the research. And again, like maybe they were targeting a similar study group. Maybe they had a similar hypothesis, but came up with a different set of conclusions. So you're going to start, as you reread your articles, you want to start thinking about how they were alike and how they were different. In order to help you do that, you're going to organize your paper by concept, not as much by source, so that when you write your paper, your literature review goes by concept. You will have 2 or 3 or 4 sections of your paper that have the subtitle of a concept. rather than a source, which is really just an annotated bibliography. So that's not what you want. So as you can see, here's our sample synthesis table, and you want to read this carefully. You will list your sources. You'll have 5 or 6 of them along the side. Here's your table, and you have space for 6 sources. Of course, you can make more concepts if you want. Then you're going to start to list those concepts, that the themes along the top of the paper. So in this case, in our sample, if we were looking at a study of what are scientists currently studying about anxiety in graduate students, after reading multiple sources, this writer has identified several themes that keep coming up in these articles. The multiple roles that graduate students have to take on, like being a teacher, being a student, being a researcher. The relationships within the departments and the classroom environment, both in terms of being the teacher and being the student. So the concept that you've identified after you've read your 5 or 6 articles are going to go across the top, and then you're going to fill in. So let's say we're back to this idea of talking about service animals and people with autism spectrum disorder. Your first concept might have been the help that the service animal provides to the family. Then the second concept might be that the assistance that the service animal provides the person with autism within their home environment. And then concept 3 might be that researchers look to see how it gives help within the public sphere. And then here again, any other notes, any problems that the researchers noted. So what you'll discover is, you see, not every box is going to be filled in for everyone, because you'll start to see that different articles may be addressed, they overlap in different areas. And this then becomes, the themes become the sections of your paper, wherein you discuss all of the different research that talked about multiple roles, and all of the different papers that talked about relationships and classroom environment. So you can start to see your paper fleshing out. This week, you're going to, get out of here, you're going to work on synthesizing your sources by filling out that table. Now, I know this is going to be a different task for most of you, and that's okay. This is an initial chance to do this. Next week, we'll do it all over again. We're going to look at a sample paper next week. You'll do some discussion boards next week on a sample paper, and it'll start to make more sense. But I want you to just jump into the deep water and start to synthesize your sources. And that is your virtual attendance assignment this week, this table. It'll be due Thursday. All right.